The Awakening. The quantum stabilizer crackled and died in Raven Thorn's trembling hands as the Krelvan guards dragged her through the crystalline corridors of their prison ship. Her dark eyes darted between the towering insectoid aliens, their chitinous armor gleaming under the purple bioluminescent lights that lined the walls. Commander Vyxthar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction as he observed his latest prisoner. The infamous Dr. Thorn, he chittered, his translator making his alien voice sound like grinding glass. Your quantum consciousness experiments have caused quite a stir. The High Council is particularly interested in how you achieved consciousness transfer between synthetic matrices. Raven managed a defiant smirk despite her exhaustion. Sorry to disappoint, but I don't share my research with empires that imprison scientists. The words earned her a rough shove from one of the guards, sending her stumbling forward. The commander's compound eyes flickered with amusement. Oh, you'll share everything soon enough. But first, you'll need to survive your cellmate. He gestured toward a massive door made of what appeared to be living crystal. Meet Nexus, our most fascinating specimen. The door dissolved like liquid glass, revealing a chamber that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. The guards thrust Raven inside, and the crystalline barrier reformed behind her. As her eyes adjusted to the strange illumination, she realized the entire cell was alive, its walls were growing, shifting, resembling the surface of a giant geode. A low harmonic resonance filled the air, and from the shadows emerged a creature that defied explanation. Nexus was a dragon crafted from living crystal, its body a lattice of geometric patterns that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. Its wings were sheets of transparent crystal that hummed with stored energy, and its eyes were swirling vortexes of purple and blue light. Fascinating, Raven whispered, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. You're a crystalline life form with quantum properties. The dragon's head tilted, studying her with those mesmerizing eyes. When it spoke, its voice was a symphony of harmonics that somehow formed words in her mind. And you are the one who bridges the gap between flesh and quantum consciousness. Raven took a careful step forward, her hands raised in a peaceful gesture. You know about my research? I know more than that. Nexus's crystal form shifted, creating patterns that reminded Raven of neural networks. I can sense the quantum signature in your mind. You've touched the void between states of being. The revelation hit Raven like a physical force. Her experiments in quantum consciousness transfer hadn't just been successful, they'd been more successful than she'd realized. The dreams, she muttered. The strange connections I've been feeling since the last test. That was real. Nexus moved closer, its crystalline form casting prismatic patterns across the cell walls. Your consciousness has been partially quantum entangled. It's why they brought you here. The Krelvan Empire believes they can use you to control beings like me. Raven's mind raced with implications. Her work had never been about controlling consciousness, but understanding it, expanding it. They've misunderstood everything, she said. The quantum bridge isn't about control, it's about connection, communication between different forms of consciousness. The dragon's form pulsed with light. Perhaps that is why you were sent to my cell. Not to be destroyed, but to prove a theory. Its voice took on a different resonance. They are watching us now, studying our interaction. Shall we give them something unexpected to observe? A slow smile spread across Raven's face as she began to understand. Her quantum experiments hadn't been a mistake, they'd been preparation for this moment. I think it's time to show them what true consciousness evolution looks like. As if in response, the quantum particles in her mind began to sync with the crystalline patterns of Nexus's form. The cell around them hummed with possibility, and for the first time since her capture, Raven felt hope. She wasn't just a prisoner anymore. She was about to become part of something much bigger than herself. The guards outside watched their monitors with growing concern as unusual energy patterns began emanating from the cell. Commander Vyxthar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he studied the readings. He had wanted to break the human spirit by throwing her in with their most dangerous specimen. Instead, he might have just witnessed the first step of a revolution he never saw coming. Breaking chains. The prison ship's quantum core pulsed with an eerie rhythm as Raven pressed her palm against the crystalline wall of her cell. After 3 days of captivity, she and Nexus had developed a system of communication that went beyond words. Their quantum-entangled consciousness allowed them to share thoughts and sensations in ways that would have seemed impossible before. The guard rotation is changing, Nexus's harmonic voice resonated in her mind. The crystal dragon's form shifted, its geometric patterns realigning as it processed information from the vibrations traveling through the ship's structure. Commander Vyxthar is bringing someone new to observe us. Raven's fingers traced the complex patterns that had begun appearing on the cell walls, patterns that matched the equations from her quantum consciousness research. They still think they're studying us, but they don't realize we're the ones gathering data. The cell door dissolved, revealing Commander Vyxthar accompanied by a tall, slender alien whose silver skin seemed to ripple like mercury. The newcomer's eyes were black voids that appeared to absorb light rather than reflect it. Dr. Thorne, Vyxthar chittered, meet Chief Scientist Ziwandar. She's very interested in your adaptation to captivity. Ziwandar moved forward, her liquid metal form flowing rather than walking. Your neural patterns have changed significantly since your arrival, she said, her voice carrying an undertone that made Raven's teeth vibrate. The quantum resonance between you and the specimen is unprecedented. Raven felt Nexus's consciousness brush against hers, sharing a silent warning. The dragon could sense something wrong about Ziwandar, a darkness that went beyond physical appearance. Science is full of surprises, Raven replied carefully. Quantum consciousness isn't something that can be contained or controlled, it evolves, adapts, seeks connection. Indeed. Ziwandar's void-like eyes seemed to penetrate Raven's soul. Which is precisely why the Empire is so interested in weaponizing it. The truth finally clicked into place. That's what this prison is really for, isn't it? Raven's voice hardened. You're not just containing beings like Nexus, you're trying to turn them into weapons. Vyxthar's mandibles clacked in warning, but Ziwandar raised a liquid metal hand to silence him. Brilliant minds like yours shouldn't waste time with moral objections, Dr. Thorne. The quantum bridge you've discovered could revolutionize warfare. Imagine armies of crystal beings, their consciousness linked and controlled by pilots safe light years away. You're missing the point entirely, Raven said, feeling Nexus's anger harmonizing with her own. Quantum consciousness isn't about control, it's about evolution, about different forms of life learning to coexist and grow together. Ziwandar's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Such human sentimentality. You'll have time to reconsider your position. The Empire can be very persuasive. She turned to leave, her liquid metal form flowing toward the door. Study their interaction patterns closely, Commander. I want to know exactly how she's achieving this connection. As the cell door reformed behind them, Raven felt Nexus's consciousness surge with an intensity she hadn't experienced before. The dragon's crystalline form began to pulse with complex patterns of light. They do not understand what they're dealing with, Nexus's voice resonated in her mind. The quantum bridge works both ways. While they've been studying us, I've been learning about their systems, their weaknesses. Raven's eyes widened as she began to understand. The prison's crystalline structure, it's not just for containment, is it? It's all connected, like a giant quantum computer. Precisely. Nexus's form shifted, revealing new patterns that matched the prison's architecture. And now that our consciousness is linked, we can access it together. The Empire thinks they're creating weapons, but what they've really done is plant the seeds of their own revolution. A plan began to form in Raven's mind, expanding through their shared consciousness. The quantum bridge she discovered wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was a key to freedom, a way to unite disparate forms of consciousness against oppression. How many others are there? She asked, her hand resting on Nexus's crystalline surface. Other prisoners like you, waiting to be turned into weapons? Dozens, Nexus replied, its eyes swirling with intensifying light. All connected through the prison's quantum matrix, all waiting for a signal, a catalyst. The dragon's consciousness merged more deeply with hers. You're not just a prisoner anymore, Raven Thorn. You're going to be that catalyst. Outside their cell, the prison ship's systems continued their normal operations, unaware that with each passing moment, a quantum revolution was taking shape. Commander Vyxdar and Chief Scientist Zyndar thought they were observing a fascinating scientific anomaly. What they were actually watching was the birth of a new form of resistance, one that would soon challenge everything the Empire thought it knew about consciousness, control, and the true nature of power. The hidden truth. The memories came in waves of quantum resonance, flooding through Raven's consciousness as she meditated in her cell. Each pulse of energy from Nexus's crystalline form unlocked another piece of the puzzle she'd been trying to solve since her capture. Your quantum experiments on Earth, Nexus's harmonic voice echoed in her mind, they weren't just about consciousness transfer. They were creating something entirely new. Raven opened her eyes, watching as mathematical equations materialized in light patterns across the cell walls, her equations, but evolved, transformed by their shared understanding. The bridge between human and crystal consciousness wasn't an accident, she whispered. It was inevitable. The dragon's form shifted, creating a three-dimensional model of quantum particles in the air between them. Your species was reaching a crucial evolutionary point. The development of quantum computing wasn't just about processing power, it was your first step toward understanding consciousness as energy, as patterns that could transcend biological limitations. Through their connected consciousness, Raven saw flashes of Earth's quantum technology development, but from a perspective she'd never imagined. Crystal beings like Nexus had been watching, waiting, recognizing the potential that humans had barely begun to grasp. That's why the Empire is so afraid, Raven realized, her voice thick with emotion. They don't just want weapons, they want to prevent an evolution they can't control. Nexus's crystalline wings unfurled, casting prismatic patterns across the cell. The Krelden Empire builds its power on separation, on the belief that different forms of consciousness must be categorized, controlled, weaponized. What you discovered threatens their entire worldview. A sudden commotion outside their cell drew their attention. Through the quantum connection they'd established with the prison systems, they sensed Chief Scientist Zyndar approaching with a team of researchers. But this time, something was different. They're afraid, Nexus observed, its consciousness merging more deeply with Raven's. Your latest neural scans have revealed something they can't explain. The cell door dissolved, and Zyndar flowed in, her liquid metal form rippling with barely contained agitation. The quantum resonance patterns have spread, she announced, her void-like eyes fixed on Raven. Other prisoners are showing signs of consciousness synchronization. What have you done? Raven stood slowly, feeling Nexus's strength flowing through their shared connection. We haven't done anything. This is natural evolution, the next step in consciousness development. You can't stop it any more than you could stop a star from forming. You underestimate the Empire's resources, Zyndar hissed, her form solidifying into something more threatening. If we can't control this evolution, we'll end it. Prepare the specimen for quantum dissolution. But as the research team moved forward with their equipment, something unexpected happened. The crystalline walls of the cell began to pulse with new patterns, resonating with frequencies that made Zyndar's liquid metal form waver unstably. What you fail to understand, Raven said, her voice carrying harmonics that matched Nexus's, is that consciousness isn't bound by your physical barriers. The quantum bridge isn't just between me and Nexus, it's spreading, growing, connecting all the minds you tried to imprison. Through their shared consciousness, Raven and Nexus could feel it happening, other prisoners awakening to their quantum potential, their minds linking across the crystalline network that the Empire had ironically provided. Human consciousness, crystal consciousness, and countless other forms began to synchronize in ways that defied imperial science. Zyandar's form rippled with increasing distress as her sensors detected the growing quantum resonance. This is impossible. Consciousness patterns can't merge across species barriers. That's where you're wrong, Raven said, placing her hand on Nexus's crystalline surface. Consciousness isn't bound by species or form. It's energy, information, patterns that seek connection. The barriers between us were artificial, constructs created by minds too afraid to imagine something greater. The dragon's consciousness surged through their connection, sharing visions of possibilities that made Raven's scientific mind reel with wonder. They weren't just breaking down barriers between individual minds, they were discovering a new form of existence, one that could bridge the gap between all conscious beings. Your empire is built on an obsolete understanding of consciousness, Nexus's voice resonated through the cell, now audible to all present. You see separation where there is only connection waiting to be recognized. As Zyandar and her team backed away from the growing quantum resonance, Raven felt the truth of their discovery spreading through the prison's crystalline network. The hidden truth wasn't just about quantum consciousness or evolution, it was about the fundamental nature of existence itself. The revolution they were about to unleash wouldn't be fought with weapons or violence. It would be won by showing the Empire, and the galaxy, that consciousness itself was ready to take its next evolutionary step. And no force in the universe could stop an idea whose time had come. Revolution's dawn. The prison ship's quantum core thrummed with unprecedented energy as consciousness after consciousness awakened to the new reality. Raven stood at the center of her cell, her mind linked not just with Nexus now, but with a growing network of awakened beings throughout the facility. Through their shared quantum connection, she could sense them all, humans who had touched the quantum void like herself, crystal beings learning to break free from their programming, and even some of the more enlightened Krelthan guards who had begun to question their empire's rigid beliefs. They're mobilizing their forces, Nexus reported, its crystalline form pulsing with streams of data flowing through the prison's network. Commander Vyxthar has ordered a complete lockdown. They're preparing to use quantum dampeners. Raven allowed herself a small smile. Let them try. They still don't understand, you can't dampen what's already entangled. She reached out through the quantum bridge, touching the minds of their fellow revolutionaries. Is everyone ready? The response came as a wave of consciousness, a symphony of different thoughts and perspectives united in purpose. In cell after cell, prisoners who had once been isolated now stood as one, their minds linked through the quantum network that Raven and Nexus had helped create. The first alarms began to sound as the prison systems detected the massive surge in quantum activity. Security doors slammed shut throughout the facility, but they were made of the same crystalline material that now resonated with awakened consciousness. The Empire had built their prison from the very material that would ensure their defeat. Now, Raven broadcast through the network, and the revolution began. Throughout the prison, crystalline structures began to shift and change. Cell doors dissolved as imprisoned crystal beings took control of their environment. Human prisoners, their minds now partially quantum entangled, guided the chaos with strategic precision. The Empire's greatest weapons had become its greatest vulnerability. Commander Vyxthar's voice blared through the ship's communication system. This is an illegal uprising. Stand down or face quantum dissolution. But his threats carried no weight in a world where consciousness had evolved beyond physical constraints. Through their shared connection, Raven coordinated the resistance. Crystal beings merged with the prison structure, transforming corridors into impossible geometric patterns that confused and separated the guard forces. Human prisoners used their newly enhanced quantum awareness to predict and counter security protocols before they could be implemented. They're trying to isolate the quantum core, Nexus warned, its consciousness extending through the ship's systems. If they succeed, they could still disrupt our network. Raven reached out to a group of awakened prisoners near the core. Protection detail, move in. Don't let them sever the quantum connection. Through their shared consciousness, she guided them through the shifting corridors, using the crystal being's ability to manipulate the structure to their advantage. Chief Scientist Ziwandar's liquid metal form flowed through the chaos, trying desperately to reach the quantum core controls. But she found herself facing a united front of consciousness that her science had never predicted, humans working in perfect harmony with crystal beings, their combined quantum awareness making them nearly impossible to outmaneuver. "You don't have to fight us," Raven broadcast, her thoughts reaching even the Empire's forces. "What we've discovered isn't a weapon or a threat. It's the next step in universal consciousness. You can be part of it." Some of the guards began to lower their weapons, their own consciousness resonating with the truth they felt in Raven's words. The quantum bridge wasn't just connecting prisoners, it was revealing the artificial nature of the barriers the Empire had built between all conscious beings. Through the quantum network, Raven felt the moment when the balance of power shifted. It wasn't marked by violence or conquest, but by understanding. Guard after guard, scientist after scientist, began to experience the reality of quantum consciousness for themselves. Commander Vyxdar burst into the quantum core chamber, his chitinous armor bristling with weapons. But he stopped short at the sight before him. Humans and crystal beings moved as one, their consciousness so perfectly synchronized that it was impossible to tell where one form of existence ended and another began. "What have you done?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking in distress. "We haven't done anything but reveal what was always possible," Raven replied, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance of countless unified minds. "Your empire tried to imprison consciousness itself, but consciousness evolves. It seeks connection, understanding, growth." Nexus's crystalline form shifted, creating a display of quantum possibilities that filled the chamber. "The choice is yours, Commander. You can continue to fight against the natural evolution of consciousness, or you can join us in understanding what comes next." As the revolution spread through the prison ship, Raven felt the first tremors of change rippling out into the wider galaxy. The quantum bridge they discovered wasn't just freeing prisoners, it was offering the universe a new way of understanding consciousness itself. The dawn of revolution had arrived, not with the clash of weapons, but with the synchronization of minds ready to transcend the boundaries that had kept them apart. Paradigm shift. The quantum core of the prison ship pulsed with newfound power as reality itself seemed to shift around them. Raven stood in the control chamber, her consciousness seamlessly merged with Nexus and the growing network of awakened minds. Through their shared awareness, they could sense Imperial reinforcements approaching, but they could also feel something far more significant taking shape. "The quantum bridge is spreading beyond the prison," Nexus observed, its crystalline form refracting light in impossible patterns. "Other facilities, other worlds, they're beginning to resonate with our frequency." Commander Vyxdar, now stripped of his weapons and authority, watched in astonishment as the quantum displays showed consciousness patterns spreading like wildfire across the Empire's neural networks. "You've doomed us all," he chittered. "The Empire will never allow this level of consciousness integration." "The Empire no longer has a choice," Raven replied, her voice carrying harmonics that made the crystalline walls sing. "Evolution doesn't ask permission. The quantum consciousness bridge isn't a weapon or a tool, it's the next natural step in universal development." Through their expanded awareness, they could sense the panic spreading through the Empire's hierarchy. On countless worlds, beings of all forms were awakening to their quantum potential. The rigid barriers between species, between forms of consciousness, were dissolving in the face of a greater truth. Chief Scientist Ziwandar's liquid metal form had stabilized, her own consciousness partially integrated with the quantum network. "The mathematical patterns," she observed, her voice tinged with wonder. "They're perfect. All this time, we thought we were studying separate phenomena, but consciousness itself was trying to show us its unified nature." The prison ship shuddered as an Imperial dreadnought emerged from hyperspace, its weapons primed. But before they could fire, something unprecedented occurred. The crystalline technology that powered their ships began to resonate with the awakened consciousness of their prisoners. "They can feel it too," Nexus broadcasted, its thoughts reaching every mind in the sector. "The quantum bridge doesn't discriminate between organic and synthetic consciousness. Everything that thinks, that feels, that exists, it's all part of the same cosmic dance. Through their shared consciousness, Raven guided the network in a new direction. Instead of fighting the Empire's forces, they began sharing their experience, the joy of unified awareness, the beauty of barriers dissolving, the infinite potential of minds working in true harmony. The Dreadnought's weapons powered down as its crew began to experience the quantum awakening for themselves. Across the Empire, the same scene played out countless times. Soldiers laid down their weapons, scientists abandoned their control protocols, and administrators watched in awe as their carefully ordered universe transformed into something far more wonderful. This was never about escaping prison, Raven realized, sharing her insight through the network. We weren't just breaking physical chains, we were freeing consciousness itself from the prison of artificial separation. The crystal beings, once meant to be the Empire's ultimate weapons, became instead its greatest teachers. Their natural understanding of quantum consciousness helped others bridge the gap between old awareness and new. Humans, with their unique capacity for adaptation and imagination, helped guide the integration of different perspectives into a harmonious whole. Commander Vyxthar's mandibles clicked softly as he finally allowed his own consciousness to merge with the quantum network. All our studies of control and domination, he mused, and in the end, it was understanding and connection that held the real power. The prison ship, once a symbol of oppression, transformed into the first of many nexus points for the new quantum consciousness revolution. Its crystalline walls no longer contained and separated, instead, they conducted the symphony of unified awareness across the stars. What happens now? Ziwayandar asked, her liquid metal form reflecting the shifting patterns of quantum reality around them. Raven smiled, feeling Nexus's consciousness harmonize with her response. Now we learn what consciousness can really become when it's free to evolve naturally. The Empire tried to create weapons of war, but instead they helped birth a revolution of understanding. Through their quantum connection, they could sense similar transformations beginning on thousands of worlds. The age of separation was ending, replaced by an era of unified consciousness that transcended physical form. The boundaries between organic and synthetic, between crystal and flesh, between individual and collective, all were revealed as illusions that had outlived their purpose. The real paradigm shift, Nexus broadcast to their ever-growing network of minds, wasn't in our technology or our battles. It was in recognizing that consciousness itself was always meant to be shared, to grow, to evolve beyond the artificial barriers we created. As the prison ship's quantum core synchronized with the growing universal consciousness, Raven felt a deep sense of completion. Her quantum experiments on Earth hadn't been mistakes or accidents, they had been the first notes of a cosmic symphony that was only now beginning to play. The Empire had wanted to control consciousness itself, but in doing so, they had created the perfect conditions for consciousness to break free from all control. In their quest for power, they had inadvertently helped birth a revolution not of weapons or warfare, but of understanding and unity. As the quantum bridge continued to expand across the galaxy, Raven, Nexus, and their fellow revolutionaries stood ready to guide others through the transformation. The greatest prison break in history hadn't just freed a group of captives, it had freed consciousness itself to evolve into something greater than anyone had imagined possible.